Hey guys, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today we're going to be going over the primary weapon, the Telos Boltor Incarnon. Now in this weapon series, I take a weapon, I build it out, and I test that weapon on its own merits. Meaning I don't mix it with any kind of external factors that would increase weapon performance. That would be things like Warframes using abilities, pets putting statuses on enemies, things like that. I just test the weapon built out by itself, and I let the viewers make their own intelligent conclusions about adding those external things. Okay, so the Telos Boltor was suggested to us by commenter Kissap, and that's why we're doing it today. And Kissap actually just recommended the Boltor in general, and he wasn't sure exactly if the Prime or the Telos version of it was better. And so I did a little bit of research, and I have like a little spreadsheet that kind of describes both of them. And I believe the Telos is going to be better than the primed version. But I'll show you the data here. So before we even go into the build, let me bring up the data, but let's go over our top commenter real quick, just so I don't forget it. So we have the top commenter of the last video, which is Project Sunny 309, and the first commenter of the last video, which is Silver 44. Okay, all right, now we can go into the data between the Telos and the Boltor, or no, sorry, Telos and the Prime Boltor. Here we go. All right, so I have the Telos on the left, and I have the Prime on the right. So as you can see, the Prime is better for damage per projectile starting off, like, you know, base stats without mods. Damage per projectile, the Prime starts out better. The crit, however, the crit chance, the Telos Boltor is 30% compared to the Prime's 12. Oof. 12 is really bad. Something to know, though, and this is important to know, and this is actually true for a lot of weapons that have different variants, and so sometimes you have to look on the wikis just to make sure of this. The evolutions for the Boltor are not equal. Certain Boltor variants, like there's three variants. There's the regular Boltor, the Telos, and then the Prime. All three variants get different stats from the fourth evolution. So the fourth evolution, the one we're going to pick is the one that just gives straight crit chance, but the Telos Boltor from that evolution only gets plus 6% crit chance, whereas the Boltor Prime actually gets plus 14% crit chance from that fourth evolution. Now, that ends up bringing the Telos Boltor up to 36%, and it ends up bringing the Boltor Prime up to 26%. So the Telos Boltor is still beating out the Boltor Prime in that respect. It's just not beating it out as much anymore. It's beating it out by 10%, which is, you know, still pretty significant. Okay, now the crit damage, the Telos Boltor is better at 2.4 compared to the Boltor Prime's 2, and 2 is average. 2 is an average crit damage. And then finally we have status chance, where this is where the Boltor Prime beats out the Telos by quite a bit. So the Boltor Prime starts with 34% status chance, whereas the Telos only has 16%. It's important to know, though, that if you're building for viral, you actually don't really need a lot of status chance, because viral only stacks to 10, and you actually get the most value out of the first viral proc compared to all the others. So even if you only get like one viral proc, that's still 100% damage to health. So for viral, status chance is not super... You can live with a 16% status chance as long as it's a fast-firing weapon. And this is a fast-firing weapon. And in fact, the Incarnate is going to give us a lot of multi-shot as well. So like 16% is completely fine with viral as long as you have those two things. So for this reason, I think the Telos Boltor is better. Again, the Boltor Prime has more damage per projectile, but you have a lot more damage that comes out of your multipliers, right? You get a lot more damage that comes out of your crit damage and crit chance multipliers. So I think the Telos Boltor is going to be the winner here. There's also some other minor differences that I didn't post on this thing here. Like the Boltor Prime is more accurate. So the Boltor Prime is considered high accuracy, whereas the Telos Boltor is only considered high or Boltor Prime is very high accuracy, whereas the Telos Boltor is high accuracy. I don't know what the hell the difference is there, but that's what the wiki says. I'm guessing that's probably just like the spread of the shots. And we'll get into that when we go to the build. So, okay, I think that's about it. Something also to note is that the Telos Boltor has the truth effect. So because it's a syndicate weapon, it gets a truth effect where the Bolter Prime does not. All right, enough about that. Let's go into the game here, and let's go into the build. Okay, I want to go over interesting things about the Telos Bolter before we go into the mods. So bolts fired will fling bodies on kill, and the body will damage targets in its path. That's kind of cool. The Telos Bolter specifically, because it's a syndicate weapon, you get this from Arbiters of Hexus, you get the truth effect. Let me scroll over here, but I'm also going to explain it. So after acquiring 1000 affinity with the weapon, all enemies receive 1000 gas damage, which 1000 gas damage might seem like a lot, but when you actually start doing like Steel Path and you're like scaling up in Steel Path, 1000 damage is like nothing. But you get some other effects to it too. So all enemies receive 1000 gas damage and guaranteed status effect. That's okay. You recover plus 25% of your health. That's kind of cool. And you get a plus 25% parkour velocity buff for 30 seconds. That's kind of cool too. Nothing amazing, but it's just little extras, right? Little extras you get on the Telos where you won't get that on the Prime. That can only trigger once every 30 seconds, but that's a 30-second parkour buff. And once every 30 seconds you get a little boost to health too, which could be nice if you're playing a health and armor build. Okay, the Incarnon. Let's explain the Incarnon. So the Incarnon mode, it's going to add slash to its element chart. So if you look at the non-Incarnon is impact puncture, no slash. If you look at the Incarnon, it is impact puncture with slash. And the slash is actually like decently high. Our viral's going to outweigh it, but it's still decently high. You're still going to get a decent amount of natural slashes here. And then a big part of this is that the base multi-shot goes to 3. I know this says 5.4, but it's because we have a mod here. But the base multi-shot will go to 3, whereas the base multi-shot on the non-Incarnon is 1. So it's an average on the non-Incarnon, and then it goes to 3 on the Incarnon. And the Incarnon's also going to start to shoot like a kind of like a pseudo shotgun-esque, where it's not going to be super accurate. There's going to be like a little spread. So that might be the difference between the Telos and the Prime. The Prime, that spread might be a little bit tighter, where the Telos is going to be a little bit wider, probably, so, because of the accuracy differences. I'm using air quotes there. Okay. So that's really it. So both modes are actually quite strong. The regular non-Incarnon, really powerful, and the Incarnon's really powerful. So, obviously you're going to want to be an Incarnon because it has better stats, has better crit chance, better crit multiplier, better multi-shot, all that stuff. But when you're not an Incarnon and you need to like charge the weapon, it's not going to feel bad. Some Incarnon weapons feel bad when you're not in Incarnon. This one, not so much. It's still like pretty decent. Okay, let's go over the mods now. We're going to be going for Galvanized Chamber for multi-shot. Since this weapon has a above average multi-shot on its Incarnon mode, multi-shot is a very important stat. And probably if you get a Riven, multi-shot would be the best stat for this weapon because of that. Galvanized Scope for critical chance. Prime Shred for fire rate and punch through. Now, something to know is that this weapon has an evolution that could give you punch through. So if you are able to meet the requirements for that evolution, which I believe is the second evolution, then you wouldn't need Prime Shred, because the only reason we're using Prime Shred is just to add a decent amount of punch through. So you would use a mod called Vile Acceleration instead. Okay, Vile Acceleration is 90 fire rate instead of 55. So you actually get more fire rate out of Vile Acceleration. You just don't get the punch through on it. But that's okay if you're able to fulfill that evolution requirement. Okay? And we'll get to that evolution when we go over the evolutions. I believe the requirement is a channeled ability. So if you have a Warframe that has a channeled ability, you get, I think it's 4 punch through, which is quite a lot. Like, that's a crap load. I'm okay with, like, 1.5, 2 punch through, but 4 is crazy. But if you're able to fulfill that requirement by having a channeled ability, then you could use Vile Acceleration instead of Prime Shred and just use that evolution. Okay. Next slot here, we have bladed rounds. Bladed rounds is going to give us 120% crit damage when aiming. The weapon has a pretty well above average crit damage multiplier, especially on the Incarnon mode. So crit damage is also an extremely important stat. So I would probably say multi-shot and crit damage are your best two stats to get on a Riven because of that. I'd probably lean multi-shot first, though. I think multi-shot's best, crit damage second best. The other option, though, for bladed round slot would be Hunter Munitions. So these will both do similar damage. However, they're going to perform better than one another at certain points in the game. So bladed rounds is just going to be more upfront damage, and it's going to work whether you're only doing an hour into Steel Path or if you're doing 4 hours into Steel Path. Hunter Munitions technically always works, but you're going to get way less value maybe like an hour or less into Steel Path. Not talking about Void Cascade. I know Void Cascade you can get like way higher enemy levels like real quicker. Or a lot quicker, I should say. But Hunter Munitions is going to get less value when you're earlier on, but it's going to get more value later on because dots become more powerful because enemies are stronger. They're able to stay alive for more ticks of the dot. When you're just starting in Steel Path and you're only like an hour in a survival or an hour in a disruption, not talking about the Demolist, but just like other mobs, they're going to die a lot of times before they even take a single slash proc. So sometimes Hunter Munitions doesn't get much value early into Steel Path, but it will end up beating bladed rounds much later. So just consider both of these. Both of these are really good. You're probably going to see similar DPS with both of these here, but earlier on, bladed rounds will perform better, and later on, Hunter Munitions will perform better. All right, hope I didn't over-explain that, but hope that helps someone. Okay. Critical Delay for crit chance. Vital Sense for crit damage. Malignant Force is going to be the 60-60 Toxin. And then Prime Cryo rounds is going to be the 165 Cold, and those are going to mix together to make Viral. Now, Viral tends to be the best general element on a low alpha damage weapon. And when I talk about low alpha damage, I'm usually talking about these total numbers here. So like on a big sniper rifle, you're usually going to see something like 20,000 or 30,000 or 40,000, right? Like those are the high alpha damage weapons. Those weapons do really good with things like blast, gas, things like that. Low alpha damage weapons, in my testing, corrosive and viral are usually the best. Or magnetic if you're doing like a pure corpse map. So that's why we're choosing viral here, because this is a low alpha damage weapon. Of course, these numbers do not factor in like critical multipliers too, so you do have to like consider that. But just to like kind of dumb it down, you can look at these numbers, and if you see a low number that's like not in the 10 plus thousands, then it's probably a low alpha damage weapon. So that's why we're going with viral here. The other reason we're going with viral is because we're not going with status chance on this weapon. There's an evolution that we can go status chance on Evo 4, but we're not picking it. So we're going to be sitting at 17% status chance on the Incarnon, and a little bit higher. What is the non-Incarnon here? 25%. Low status chance is okay if you're using viral, as long as you have a fast-firing weapon, and it's even more okay if you have a fast-firing weapon with above-average multi-shot, which is exactly what the Telos Boltor is. Like, this is perfect for viral. We don't have to go any more status chance, actually. And that's, in fact, why we go with Prime Cryo rounds. Okay? So, like, we don't need to go with the 260-60s because we don't really care about, like, producing over 10 viral, because we can't produce over 10 viral. So we can just get more damage out of Prime Cryo rounds here. If for some reason, like let's say we were going for heat or something like that, you would need to go status chance, because heat can of course stack to whatever the hell you can get on it, and so you do need more status chance. Viral doesn't need that, so you can just get more damage by using Prime Cryo rounds. So use a 60-60 tox, use the big Prime Cryo for the cold, and you're good there. Okay, in the Exilus slot, you got two options. You probably got more than two options, but I think there's two best options that kind of fight with each other. And they're weird, too. One of them's weird. Guided Ordnance. Oh, my goodness. So, on hit, 30% accuracy when aiming for 9 seconds. So we were talking about the Incarnon mode and how it kind of turns into a shotgun that has like spread and it's not super accurate anymore. Guided Ordnance could lessen that spread a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. It's like it's an option. It's not an option I'm going to go with. So I'm going to be going with Vigilante Supplies. Convert secondary ammo pickups to 30% of your ammo pickup. That's okay, but we don't really even need that. We're using Vigilante Supplies for the bottom part. 5% chance to enhance critical hits from primary weapons. This gets the most value on fast firing above average multi-shot weapons. And that is exactly what this weapon is. This is the prime example for a weapon that will work good with Vigilante Supplies. It's a high fire rate, above average multi-shot weapon. So 1 out of 20 of our shots are going to get its crit tier upgraded. So if it's an orange, it's going to go to red. If it's a red, it's going to go to a red plus. So that's why it makes sense. So that's why we're using Vigilante Supplies. But don't sleep on Guided Ordnance. I think Guided Ordnance could be good. I didn't do testing to see how much it tightens your spread. It could be like almost nothing. So, you know, take my advice on Guided Ordnance with a grain of salt. Pardon the pun. But it could be decent. You know, if you want to do testing yourself, let us know in the comments how Guided Ordnance performed. Okay, and in the arcane slot here, we have Primary Deadhead. Primary Deadhead is going to give us a 360% flat damage increase, a plus 30% headshot multiplier, and minus 50% weapon recoil. So, super good for our build. We're going for a headshot build with scope and everything, so it makes sense. And that is the build for the Telos Boltor. Again, the optional slot would be this one right here. This is the slot that you're switching around between Blader rounds or Hunter munitions. Okay, let's go over the evolutions now. The first evolution is that you've just unlocked the weapon. Congratulations. The second evolution, and this is the one that we said is going to depend on the fire rate mod. Whether you use galvanized, or not galvanized, sorry. Whether you use prime shred or use vile acceleration. And it's because of this right here, Hunter's Mantra. Hunter's Mantra is amazing, and if you can fulfill this condition, you should pick this one. So this increases your base damage by +4, and with a channeled ability active, you get +4 punch through. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of punch through. And plus 40% accuracy. We were talking about accuracy with that Exilus mod before. Well, accuracy should decrease your spread by an okay amount. I don't know exactly how much it decreases it, but it should make it a bit better, hopefully. So that's why Hunter's Mantra is the best one, but you need to be able to fulfill that. You need to be able to fulfill that with a channeled ability active. And be careful with certain channeled abilities, because some channeled abilities don't technically count as channeled abilities unless they are working, like Gloom, for instance. Gloom's a channeled ability as long as it's affecting an enemy. If there's no enemies near you, now it like doesn't work anymore. So like, you know, I guess depending on the range you have in your character, if Gloom's working, if you have like super short range, it could not be. I don't know. But just be careful with those like channeled abilities that are weird, like halfway ones that sometimes act like one and sometimes don't. Crimson Overture. This is the one I'm picking because I'm going to act as though I don't have a channeled ability, which I guess I technically don't, but yeah. So Crimson Overture. This on a kill increases base damage by +2 and plus 20% ammo efficiency for 5 seconds, stacks 3 times. The ammo efficiency is basically useless because it doesn't work on Incarnon, so this only will work on the non-Incarnon mode. I mean, I guess that's okay. You get to save some ammo, but you shouldn't be having ammo issues anyway since you're going to be shooting the Incarnon most of the time. The reason I'm using this, though, is because this is, when it's stacked up to 3 times, is going to be +6 base damage instead of this one's +4. Not a big difference, but if you do not have a channeled ability, you might as well just get that extra +2 here. But if you have a channeled ability, please pick Hunter's Mantra. Way better. And then you could pick the faster fire rate mod too, right? You could pick the vile acceleration because you don't need the punch through on prime shred at that point. Okay, third evolution. There's 2 good options here. Let's go over all of them though. So we have Swift Deliverance, which is +60% projectile speed. These projectiles are pretty fast. You don't technically need projectile speed, but it will make it almost like hit scan. So if you pick projectile speed, it's going to feel almost like a hit scan weapon. If you don't pick projectile speed, there's a little bit of travel time. It's still pretty fast though. So that's why it's not completely necessary swift deliverance, but it's an option. The other really good one is rapid reinforcement. Plus 60% reload speed. You shouldn't have to reload your weapon because you're going to be switching to Incarnon, and the Incarnon doesn't need to reload, but reload speed affects the speed at which you switch to the Incarnon mode. So that's why it's also an option. Both of these like aren't amazing, right? Because like they're not going to like work. They're just not amazing. They're not amazing picks. You pick whatever non-amazing choice you want out of those two. I'm going to pick the plus 60 projectile speed, but this is absolutely fine as well. The one in the middle, extended volley, plus increased base magazine capacity by plus 20. This only affects the non-Incarnon. I think this is the weakest choice here. Okay, and then we go to the Evo 4. And this is one, if you want to do your own research and your own like decision, like, oh, do I want to use the Boltor Prime or the Telos Boltor, or maybe I just want to use the regular Boltor for some reason, go on the wiki and look at the evolutions, because all three variants get different stats. So if I'm scrolling over Commodore's Fortune here, it says increases base critical chance by plus 6. But the primed version, I don't know what I do with my paper here. I think the primed version was like plus 14 or plus 16. So like way more that the primed version got here. And the regular Boltor version might have got like even more. I can't remember exactly what that one was. So if you want to do your own research, look on the wiki and scroll down to the evolutions and look at the first one. Or not the first one, sorry, fourth evolution. So we're going to be picking Commodore's Fortune here for more crit chance. Again, we don't really need status chance because we're going with Viral. Viral doesn't need high status chance, so we could just bank on more crit chance. Survivor's Edge is a little bit less crit chance, but you get a little bit of status chance as well. We don't need status chance, so I'm going to skip on this one. And then Elemental Balance, you get a crap load of status chance, which if we decided to do something instead of Viral, this would be the one we would pick, but we're not. We're going to stick with Viral. We don't need a lot of status chance, so we're not picking Elemental Balance. We're just going to get another plus 6% base critical chance. And that's it. That's how you build the Telos Boltor Incarnon. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show this in 10 minutes of Steel Path gameplay. I'm going to do it on a big dumb Anaros with no Archon shards that increase weapon performance. No mods or arcanes on the Anaros that increase weapon performance. And with a pet with no sentinel weapon and no mods on the pet that increase weapon performance. Alrighty. Let's get into the Mott. My buddy wants me to play Space Marine with him. I had his little chat up, I forgot.
Enemies have grown fierce. Use all that you have learned.
So without the Incarnon, it's actually like somewhat accurate. You know, it's pretty accurate without the Incarnon. But with the Incarnon, it's going to be a little bit more of a spread because it turns kind of like into a pseudo shotgun. Alrighty, let's start this up here.
They have just shut down all systems. I'm sending life support capsules your way.
Let's get our conditionals going. We get some headshots and switch to a Incarnon mode here. Let me see real quick. See how it's a little bit more spread out? It's not like super spread out, but it's a little bit more spread out there. I really like this tile set. This tile set right here is one of my favorite on Mott. The other thing I was thinking too, so I said you could use Vial Acceleration, but I mean this shoots kind of fast. If you do use Vial Acceleration, just be careful. Be careful you're not blowing through your Incarnon and wasting ammo. Fire rate doesn't always equate into more damage if you're wasting, if you're overkilling, right? Like you kill one of your targets and you blaze another few rounds. Like you're wasting ammo and then having to reload more often. So fire rate doesn't always equate into more damage if you're wasting shots. So just be careful. I think Vial Acceleration is okay. Just be careful with it because it is like 90 fire rate. Like this is only 55 and I think this thing is pretty friggin' fast. You're definitely going to want to be an Incarnon over the non-Incarnon, but the non-Incarnon doesn't feel bad either. It feels like a pretty decent assault rifle. We'll have the, I probably am going to do the Orbius tomorrow, because I was planning to do the Boltor and the Orbius last week, but I had my my wife went in for surgery, and I said it last video, but just in case no one watched the last video, she's doing good. She has her little eye patch off. She's no longer a pirate, and her eye is doing well. But yeah, I was planning on doing the Orbius and the Boltor last week, but I was 2 videos behind because I took 2 days off to just kind of take care of her and hang out with her because she couldn't really see. Oh, and for anyone that doesn't know, too, you can take off the Incarnon adapters. So if you accidentally put the Incarnon adapter on your Bolter Prime instead of the Telos Bolter, like I did, because I actually had this on my Bolter Prime, then you could just go to Cavallero in the Zaramon, and one of his options, I think it's the one where you look at your Incarnon weapons, you can click on your Boltor and remove Incarnon adapter.
We've decided you're bad.
But it will, just to let you know though, it will charge you to put it on the new one, and you won't get those resources back. So like you might have to get some more Pathos clamps, but you won't have to get the adapter again. Like you won't have to pick the adapter again. You know, you'll always have the adapter. You'll just have to pay the Duviri resources to put it back on the Telos version. Or the Prime version. You know, if you want to mess with the Prime instead of the Telos, that's fine too. I personally think the Telos is better. I don't have side-by-side comparisons, though, just because that would require me to get 2 adapters. And I don't have 2 adapters. But I'm sure if I did side-by-side comparisons, I am almost positive the Telos would beat it out, just because damage multipliers are usually better than just damage per projectile. Like damage, you know. I just can't 100% confirm that. I can't 100% confirm it because I have technically not done this side-by-side.
Extraction is available.
Alright, we're at 5 minutes. Yeah, and for Riven stats, multi-shot, crit damage, and then probably crit chance. Crit chance is a little bit boring, but yeah, why not? Why not some more crit chance? Maybe we can get into 2 exclamation points. Am I into it? I think I'm in 1 exclamation point. Have I seen any at 2, or am I always at just 1? I'm trying to see if I notice any 2 exclamation point numbers. I think I'm in regular reds, and then when Vigilante Supplies kicks in, it's a exclamation point. So I don't think I'm in 2. But if you had a Riven that had crit chance, you could probably get the 2 exclamation points. I'm trying to look at the red numbers now and see if I see any 2 exclamations, but I don't. Yeah, I think you would need a ribbon with crit chance to get to 2 exclamations. Yeah, so multi-shot, crit damage, crit chance, probably valuing those stats in that order. Of course, there's other things you could do on ribbons too, right? You could always use a ribbon to compress stats so you could fit another mod on too. And in that case, you're usually looking to do other things, like maybe getting viral all on one ribbon, so you can free a slot up. But it depends what you want to do with the ribbon exactly. Do you need to does it require you to compress stats, or do you just want extra stats? I don't think you would need to compress stats on this weapon, though. Like, the only other thing, as far as mods that I would want on this weapon is Hunter Munitions. And, you know, you could always pop up later rounds for that. So, like, I don't think you need to compress for this weapon. I'd probably just get your basic multi-shot, crit damage, crit chance ribbon and just be happy with that. Of course, you know, that's in a perfect world if you can get the ribbon you want. Which, if you have luck like me, you'll never get it. You'll never get it. I've only ever had one god roll, and it's questionably not even a god roll. And it was for the Athodai, which is a very mediocre weapon. It's, I think, crit chance, crit damage, and status chance, with a negative. I think negative zoom. But the Athodai is more of a crit weapon, so I think the true god roll, I think, should have been the multi-shot crit chance, crit damage. But I got status chance instead. That's why I said it's questionably not a god roll because of that. Although I think on the Athodai, I have to remember, I haven't done the Athodai in a while. Someone, I did a video on the Athodai because it has 2 different firing modes. I actually did 2 videos on the Athodai. One on the alt fire and one on the primary fire. But that was a long time ago, and it was like before the element rework, and I'm wondering if it would be built out differently. I also think there might have been one mod slot I wasn't happy with on my video. So I wouldn't mind, like, redoing the Athodai. Just because it's been so long. It's been so long, and there's been new mods and all kinds of stuff that's happened since then. But yeah, I was saying, I think the Athodai is a heat. I think it's viral heat. So status chance might not be horrible on it, because you need that for heat, of course. Because heat's not like viral where it only stacks at 10. Heat can stack to whatever you can get it to. I'm pretty sure if I'm trying to do all this out of memory, I think the Athodai has really bad status chance is the thing. So any kind of percent bonus status chance is pretty, like, not impactful. Now, let's see what this Telos Boltor gets to. Some of the real meta weapons we've done have hit about 1,100, 1,200 kills in 10 minutes. Let's see what this guy is in 10 minutes. I think it's going to be not there. I think it's going to be like 900 is going to be my guess. All right, 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
Hold out as long as you can.
Let me go past these dudes and then we'll check it. 968, 968, okay. That's still good numbers. That's still very good numbers. It's just not like Torrid Incarnon numbers. You know, I think everyone, you know, it would expect that it's not going to be the Torrid. But it's still very respectable. Some of the average weapons I've done have been at like 600 kills in 10 minutes. So this is definitely above average, like well above average. It's just not in the absolute meta clearing everything basically before they spawn kind of weapons like the Torrid is.
And so we learn the importance of clarity and purpose.
They come to this place when they know they are not pure.
Critical life support levels. Extraction is your best option.
All right, that was the Telos Boltor Incarnon. If you guys liked the video, consider giving it a like. If you haven't subbed yet, consider subbing or tell me what I can do to earn your sub. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. All right, bye.